Hello, I'm Rebecca Flaherty, and today we're going to be continuing our beginner series and working on this pattern from our Cute and Cozy collection here. If you're a regular here and you've seen the intro before, feel free to use the timestamps to skip to the beginning of the tutorial, and if you're new here, then welcome to the Pattern Maker's Toolkit. You can get the free motif stamp brushes that we'll be using to make this pattern, plus all of the other ones in the collection, over on my website in the Pattern Maker's Toolkit. And I'm going to be showing you how to use my Pattern Maker canvas from my Etsy store to make patterns in Procreate using the diamond method. It's super easy, super fun. It will speed up your workflow because sketching out and finalising the layout for the pattern first before you draw any motifs means that when you do come to illustrate the motifs, you're only drawing the exact ones you need, and you can draw them to fit their exact spot in the pattern. Traditionally, we tend to work the other way around when designing patterns, where we draw a bunch of motifs first and then try to piece them together like a jigsaw puzzle. But the problem with working that way in Procreate is that every time you rotate or scale a motif, the image quality deteriorates. So by doing it this way, you keep your image quality perfect, and you also get to preserve all the layers, so you can always go back and easily make edits to the colours at a later date. It's also an especially good way to make patterns if you want to sell or license them, because you can export all of these layers to something like Affinity Photo or Photoshop and be able to hand over a fully editable layered pattern to your buyer. And that is the workflow I use for all my patterns that I make for commercial use. So that is why I love using the diamond method for making patterns in Procreate, and why I first created these canvases for myself to speed up my design process with all the layers set up like this, including these beautiful textured overlays. They're fully seamless, and I prefer to work with these texture layers turned on as I work, because then I can adjust the colours as I go. And as you can see, if I hide all of these layers and go back to this working one underneath, return the textures layers off, you can see it alters the colours. So I prefer to work with these turned on so I don't get any unexpected colour results at the end. So let's get started, and I'll explain everything as we go. I'm going to import my canvas from this gallery screen. So I'm going to bring in the brightly painted canvas from the Boho Bright sets for this one. And I'm going to grab my colour palette, and we're going to use this Kawaii Hygge one here, which you can get free over on my website. And I'm going to choose the background colour for this. I think we'll choose this purple colour. And you can see these lovely texture overlays on there if I turn that on and off. There's some that go over the top, and there's also some that just apply to the background. So we are going to start working in our layers folder, in our sketch folder, and on this layer here, helpfully called draw here first. So we're going to stamp out our motifs on this layer to start with. So I'm going to find my pumpkin brushes, and we'll start with this one here, and I've got the size for this at 29%. Grab a pink colour, and I'm going to stamp a few of these around the canvas. I'm going to start off by doing just one on an empty layer. I'm going to add another layer, grab the other one, stamp one of those, the size, oops, I've just changed it, but I think the size for this one was also 29%. Just undo that. No, it's 29%. And I'll add another layer and stamp one of these as well. And that one is 30%, but 29 would be fine, just to give you an idea of how big these are for my canvas. So I've got each one of these on a separate layer, so I can duplicate these and turn them around, and the image quality isn't a problem because this is our sketch layer. So I'm going to use these motifs to fill up just this middle diamond here in the canvas, and everything else will be made by duplicating it around the outside later. So let's spread these around the canvas. And I'll turn off snapping and magnetics to do this so that we can move them around a lot easier. So we'll put one here. Put one of these up there. And we'll move this little guy to there. So I'm going to place these kind of roughly along this edge, and then when we duplicate them, they'll be repeated down there on that edge. So I don't need to put anything else here because it will be this one here duplicated down there. I'm going to put all of these in first, and then you'll see exactly what I mean in a minute. So I'm going to duplicate these and spread some more around. So let's add another of the smaller pumpkins. We'll put that somewhere in the middle. This one, I'm going to flip it so that it's going a different way to that one. When you're making patterns, it's a good idea to have a copy of the same motif somewhere else, but looking slightly different, and it will help to make the pattern look more seamless. So again, this one, we'll flip this one so it's the other way. And put that one down there. And then duplicate this one. Flip it horizontally. And we'll put that one kind of there. And then I also want to put some flowers on this pan. So again, in this stamp motif brush set at the top here, there's a flower. So we can put some of those, might make those a bit bigger. Put a few of those in. This one is going to overlap down there somewhere, so I'll probably have to shuffle these around in a minute, but that will do for now. And now we can merge these all down with this sketch diamond layer there. And we can hide the spare one. So now I'm going to duplicate this layer, tap transform, turn snapping and magnetics back on, and we're going to snap it halfway down the canvas until we have those orange lines there, and you can see they're nicely crossing over in the middle, and then halfway across until it snaps right down into the corner there. And as you can see, these are repeated down here in this section. So we're going to do that again, duplicate this bottom layer and do that into each of these corners. So duplicate, tap transform, snap it over here, making sure we've got those orange lines. Duplicate the bottom one again, tap transform, and drag it into this corner. Duplicate, tap transform, and snap this one down here into that corner. Then these top four ones, not this one in the middle, the top four, we can pinch those together. I'm going to tap on it and I'm going to invert the selection so we can see which ones are the motifs we'll be drawing and which ones are the ones we'll be repeating. And then we want to see how this is looking in repeat, so I'm going to swipe down with 3 fingers and tap copy all. Come up here to the top, swipe down again and tap paste. And then I'm going to snap this, if I turn snapping and magnetics on, snap this into the middle there. That will say 1800 pixels. And then I'm going to duplicate this and snap it into that corner, duplicate again, and snap it to the bottom. And then we can see how the pattern is looking in repeat. And I think this part is spread out okay, but we've got a gap here on the edge of the canvas, and I think just putting one of those flowers in there would fix that. So let's just hide those. So to work on this spot in the edge of the canvas, we need to bring these edges into the middle. So I'm going to duplicate this green one, snap half of it over that way, tap on this one, and snap the other half over that way. And you'll see if we zoom in, that diamond is now an X in the middle of the canvas. And this pattern maker canvas, because it has these set up precisely, anytime you snap something like this and move it around, you can see that that matches up perfectly, so you know that it's all lined up properly. So then I can pinch those together, and then we need to do that with the bottom one as well. So duplicate that, snap half of it over to this side, and then snap the other one over to this side. And again, you can zoom in and you'll see that instead of a diamond, we now have an X in the middle, and these will line up properly. So I can pinch those together. I'm going to add a layer above just for now, grab the flower brush again, and just stamp one of those in the middle. And then I think I'm going to shuffle this one around a little bit. So I'm going to get my freehand select tool, go on this layer where it is, and then draw around this one. It's okay to move parts of the edge of the diamond around. Turn snapping off and just move that down to there, I think. And then that one I will probably move, but we'll do that when we've put this back around the other way. So I'm going to merge all of my pink stuff together now. I can delete this one on top because we've moved things around. Duplicate this, tap transform, put this back over where it was, so I'm snapping it back into a diamond shape. And again, you can zoom into the bottom and make sure that these are all lining up. And then we repeat the duplicating it around the edges. So duplicate and snap it into all these corners. Then I can pinch those together and invert that again. And I think it was just this one here where I moved this one. You can see that's the bit with the diamond through it. So this one, I'm just going to move down to the bottom. So let's make sure we're on that layer. And I'm just going to move this down slightly to there. And that is why I really like using this diamond method, because you get to work out the position of everything before you commit to drawing the motifs. So again, because we've moved something, I'm going to delete the top layer, because that means that pumpkin there is now in the wrong place. This one where it crosses over the line, that one should be up there too. So we can delete this green one, duplicate, and just put this around the edges now in its final position. Merge those top four together. We'll invert the colour. I'm going to turn the opacity down on these a little bit. And then we are ready to start illustrating our pattern in the pattern group. So I'm going to turn the pattern folder on. It's got this marker in there so you know which one I'm working in, and by having this there it means I can save it with a layer added to it, and you can also easily add layers from the bottom up. That's why it has this pattern marker in it. Turn down the opacity on that one, and I'm going to start by tracing over the pumpkins. So I'm going to grab this one from my Pattern Maker canvas brush set, the tracing crayon, and I'm going to use this brown colour. And I'm going to start by tracing over all these lines on the pumpkins. And the nice thing about using the stamp brushes for the sketch layer is that A, it speeds it up, but also because we're not using a repeated motif all around the canvas, each one is going to be slightly different. So where I've not quite stuck to the line there, that's going to be slightly different in the other version of this one here. That was going to look ever so slightly different, so it helps give your patterns a nice hand-drawn feel. So we'll do this one now. And remember, it's only the pink motifs that we need to draw. So it's just these ones here. We don't need to draw these green ones around the outside. So I'm just going to go ahead and trace over all these brown bits now. Then I'm going to draw in these stalks. I'm going to do that on a layer underneath. And again, because we've got this pattern marker, we can just tap on that one and add a layer underneath. If that wasn't there, we'd need to go on this one, add a layer, and then keep dragging it underneath all the time. So that's why I have this layer at the bottom there. I'm going to vary the colour of some of these, so I'll use this peach one first to do this one up here. And where I have that poking out from under there, I want to clean that up a little bit, so I'm just going to use an eraser and clean that up there. And I think I will also do this one peach in the middle. Then I'm going to use this pink to do this one down here. And again, I'm going to clean up that little oopsie down there. I'll just turn the sketch off. Just erase that bit there. And we'll also do this one up here, pink. And then the other two we will do with this purple colour here. If you've watched any of my other tutorials, you know I like to kind of stylize the illustration of these pattern collections in some way so that the common theme or like thread runs through the whole collection. And for these ones I'm going to use outlines, which is a thing I don't normally use in my work, so this is something new for me. I normally draw without outlines, so I'm going to use a darker colour for the outline and then a lighter version of it to fill the in-between shapes. So we'll do the flowers next, and I think I'm going to use this orange colour to do the flower middles. And we'll put this on another layer. So we've got each colour on a separate layer, apart from these ones here. But if we wanted to change the colour on these, it's easy enough to alpha lock that layer and then come in and change them like that. So because these aren't touching each other, it's okay to have those on the same layer. But for all the other bits, I'm going to try and keep them on separate layers. Just grab this orange colour again. So I'm just going to draw and then hold, so that snaps to an oval shape there. If you wanted it to be a perfect circle, you can draw, hold, and then tap with your finger, and then it'll snap to a perfect circle. But I'm fine with these just being an oval shape or an ellipse. So this one here that's on the edge, obviously we can't draw that in yet because it goes off the edges. once we've done all of the illustration that we can do, we will draw this one in our extra folder at the end. So we'll leave that one for now. I'm going to add a layer underneath these, and I'll draw the daisy petals in now, and I'm going to draw those all slightly different colours as well. So I think I'll do this one, this light peach colour. And don't worry about these not joining up underneath, because we're going to be merging these layers together and using them as a reference layer to do the fill afterwards. So it doesn't matter that we aren't making closed shapes at the moment. And that is all the line work done for our pattern group now, so we can fill all the shapes in now. I'm going to turn the sketch off so we can more clearly see our line work, and bring the opacity down on this a little bit more. So I'm going to group all of this line work together, and I'm going to duplicate this group, and then I'm going to flatten it. I'm going to tap on the group and make it a reference. Then we can hide the layer, and what that's going to do is when we fill stuff on an empty layer, it's going to use the line work on this layer for our guides to fill within. So if I add a layer underneath the line work group, and I'm going to grab this white colour, and we'll fill in the daisy petals. So drag and drop that into there, select continue filling, and we'll just do this daisy here to start with. If I turn this group off, you can see it's used the line work on this layer as a reference to fill on there. So that's how we're going to do all of the filling for this pattern. So I'm going to carry on and do the rest of the flowers. So we'll have this white colour on one layer, then we'll add a layer and we'll do the middles of the daisies. So I'm going to use this yellow colour for that. We can have another layer, so I think I'll use this dark colour for this one and this one here. And then again, I'm going to do all of the pumpkins on one layer because it would be easy enough to alpha lock and recolour these. So let's choose a lighter colour now for the pumpkins, and we'll do this one and this one in that lighter colour. And then we'll choose this middle colour for these two here. And then for the middle bits of these stalks, you can add another layer, and I'll use the same layer for all of these, and I'm just going to use the lighter version of each of these colours for that. So that'll be this lighter purple to do these, the lighter pink for this one, this one, and then the lighter peach for that one and that one. So now we're going to add some cute faces to these pumpkins. In the brush set, you'll see there's some faces already made in here. I'm going to use this one. You can either, if you want to just use the face as it is, you can just add a layer at the top, and you could just use these as they are. But what I want to do is I'm going to put them in the sketch layer and then trace over them so that the texture of the line work matches up with what we have in the pattern. So I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to put these in the sketch folder. So I'll turn that back on. I bring my sketch folder up to the top above my pattern folder, and this sketch diamond, I'm going to change the blend mode to linear burn and bring the opacity somewhere around 30%, and then I'm just going to stamp these on for the faces. Might make those a bit bigger. Let's try 8%. So with select tool and freehand, and we'll turn snapping and magnetics off, you can rotate these around and get them into position there. They look cuter if they're kind of further down the bottom of the shape that you're placing on. So I mean, you can play around with the positioning on and see how you get kind of like a different look if you have it up there versus down there, but in general it will look kind of cuter if you have it towards the bottom of the thing it is being the face for. So then just put that on these as well. So there's all the faces in place. I can go back to my pattern group now. I'm going to add a layer above, and using this dark brown colour and my tracing crayon, I can draw all of these shapes in. So I'm going to draw a circle, hold, tap to get these eye shapes, and trace the bottom of the mouth, let that snap, and then draw the straight line over the top. I'm going to leave the cheeks and add those separately later. And then we can fill all these with colour drop, but first of all we need to turn this reference layer off first because it will still be using this line work. So if I try and fill this, it's still going to use this as the reference layer for that. So we need to tap on this layer and turn off reference, then on this layer we can go around and fill all these shapes. There we go. Now I'm going to add a layer above this, and I'm going to use the white colour, and I'm going to use from my pattern maker brush set this mini dot brush here, and see how big it is. So that'll do for these smaller dots. So I'm going to just go over these smaller circles there with this brush, and then increase the brush size a little bit. And then do these slightly bigger dots in the top right corner of the eyes. And they're looking so cute already. And then we just need to draw in the cheeks, so we'll add another layer for those. I use this light pink colour, and I'll make the brush a bit bigger for these, and just add the cheeks in there. There we go, so cute. And then to get the face to stand out a little bit more than the line work for here, I'm going to set the blend mode on the face to multiply instead of normal. So tapping on this N here, and we're going to change it to multiply, and that will just make that a little bit darker. So the next thing we have to do is to draw in this flower on the edges. So to do that, we're going to do that in our extra group. So we need to take a complete copy of all of this. So I'm going to swipe down with 3 fingers, and I'm going to tap copy all. Then I'm going to turn my extra group on. I'll turn the pattern group off, and tap on this layer that says extra, swipe down with 3 fingers and tap paste. And that's put a copy of everything we had in there. The textures are like extra strong now because it's copied it with the textures, and then we've got the textures over the top. So I'll turn the texture overlays off at the moment while we're doing this. And what we need to do is bring this into the middle. So this layer we've just pasted in, we're going to duplicate it, tap transform, turn snapping and magnetics on, and snap this over to the side just like we did when we were drawing that flower on the edge. So instead of our diamond, we now have an X. And then we can draw this flower exactly the same way as we did when we were working in the main pattern. So we'll add a layer, and then we can trace this in with that colour there. And we add a layer underneath, and let's use pink for this one. Then I'm going to duplicate this layer, duplicate this one as well, and then I'm going to merge one of each of them together, use that as the reference layer, and then we can hide that. And then underneath I'm going to add a layer, and we can fill the petals with white, and then add a layer above, and then we can fill the middle with that yellow colour as well. Then we can actually get rid of the reference layer now because we don't need that anymore, and if we do, we could just remake it. So there's one more thing I want to do in the main pattern now, so I'll turn the extra group off, and I'm going to turn the sketch back on, and in my pattern layer I'm going to add a layer, and I'm just going to do some white dots. I'm going to put the mini dot brush as big as it will go, and I'm just going to fill in some of these gaps with these white dots here, and I'm just going to stick to the inside of the diamond. So that's all of our illustrating done. Now we're ready to build out the pattern tile. So let's collapse our pattern group, turn off our sketch, and turn our extra group on first. If you've got enough spare layers, you can just duplicate this layer, delete the extra marker and the inserted image, and then you can flatten the group. If you don't have enough layers to duplicate your whole groups, what you can do, and I'll do this with the pattern folder now. So let's turn off that, turn the pattern group back on. You can make sure your texture layers are turned off. Go into your pattern group, turn the marker off, turn the background texture off, turn the background color off, so you just have your pattern folder showing. Swipe down with 3 fingers and copy all. Then come up here to the top of your layers folder, swipe down again and tap paste. And that will also give you a flattened copy of everything. So we've got a flattened copy of our layer group, which we did by duplicating the whole group and flattening. But if you don't have enough layers to duplicate a whole group, you can hide everything except that group, copy all, and then paste. So let's turn off our layers now. Turn on our background texture, background color, and we can turn on our overlay textures as well. So we want to put this flower back where it's meant to be on the edges. So to do that, I'm going to draw a mark on the corners, opposite corners of this pattern. It needs to go all the way off this edge, and then this one and that one. Then that way we can duplicate the layer, tap and select the whole layer, and we're snapping on, we can snap it over to this edge here, putting it back in its place on the edge of the pattern. Drag this one over to that side. Then you can merge those two together and erase these marks from the top and the bottom. Then we can turn this one back on, and if I go in and turn our sketch on, you can see this is in exactly the right spot there. Let's turn those layers back off. We can merge these two together, and then we build out the pattern tile by duplicating this into the corners the same way as we did when we were working with our sketch, except when we had our sketch layer we had that diamond that went all the way to the edges. We don't have that now, so that's why we need to put this mark into the corners, so then we can grab the whole layer. We transform it, and be really careful and make sure that you've got these orange lines showing that you're snapping it exactly into the corners there. And then when all of those are in place, you can merge those together, erase these marks in the middle, and then go to your layer underneath and erase the ones that are in the corners there, although they are hidden by this pumpkin. Then you can merge those two together, and that is your pattern tile. Next job to do is to test the pattern tile and make sure that it's working properly. So to do that, we're going to swipe down with 3 fingers and copy all. Come up to the top here and tap paste. And then we're going to drag this up and snap it into the middle there. You'll have orange lines crossing over, and that will say 1800 pixels. Then you can duplicate that and drag it over to that side. I'm going to add a layer underneath these two and fill it with a dark colour. Grab black and we'll fill the layer. If there was any kind of gap along this seam, you'd see a black line showing through there. So where these two meet, just pan up and down that and make sure that all your motifs line up along there and that you don't have a black line. So once you've checked that that's looking okay, you can merge these two together at the top, duplicate those, and then drag that and snap it down to the bottom. And again, where these two meet, you just want to pan across, make sure that all your motifs line up and that you've got no black line going across there. So we can pinch those together. And that is our pattern in repeat. I really hope you've enjoyed watching this tutorial, and if you have a go at making this pattern and share it on Cara, then don't forget to tag me at Becky Flaherty so I can see it. Don't forget, if you want the canvas and the texture overlays to make this pattern, that's in my Etsy store, and the stamp brushes and colour palette are over in the Pattern Makers Toolkit on my website. If you're a Pattern Makers Toolkit member, you'll get 10% off everything in my Etsy store. The Pattern Makers Toolkit is kind of like a Patreon group, except it's free. You get access to all the resources in the Pattern Makers Toolkit on my website, including those I make for my Skillshare classes, early access to some of my YouTube tutorials and drawing prompts, discounts in my Etsy store, and one new freebie exclusively via email every month. And I only send out 1 email per month, I promise. If you want to see more pattern tutorials like this every week, then don't forget to subscribe here on YouTube. Have fun, stay creative, and I will see you next time.